You are sitting at your desk, 40 people surrounding you. Crosstalk, someone laughing loudly, keyboards clicking, footsteps, phones vibrating. You put on your headphones, but it doesn't help. You still feel the presence of everyone. Every time someone walks behind you, your shoulders lock up. You're not even thinking about your work anymore. You're thinking about who is watching, who might interrupt, if your face looks focused enough. And then, it's 6 p.m. You've been there for 9 hours. Exhausted, that kind of exhaustion that makes no sense for someone who has been sitting in a chair all day. But when you look at what you actually produced, almost nothing. You were told this is how modern work operates: collaborative, open, transparent. You were told the problem is you, that you need to adapt, focus better, stop being so sensitive to noise. But here is what no one tells you. Maybe you are right to feel this way. Maybe the environment has real problems. And maybe, just maybe, understanding these problems is the first step for you to work better, regardless of where you sit. Let's investigate a simple question. Does the open office work? For whom? And what can you do with that information?
The history of the open office begins with good intentions, and that's not irony. Germany, the 1950s, a group of consultants created the concept of Bürolandschaft, office landscape. The idea was to break down the rigid hierarchies of traditional offices, those rows of closed rooms where the boss was isolated and information didn't flow. They wanted movement, communication, flow. And in the context of the time, it made sense. It was a response to suffocating corporate structures. But then came Silicon Valley in the 2000s, and it transformed that idea into something else. Suddenly, walls were the enemy. Offices at Google, Facebook, Apple, all open, vast, transparent. The narrative was seductive: spontaneous collaboration, creativity in the air, breaking down barriers between teams. Companies worldwide copied it. They tore down partitions, stacked people in, and called it culture. But there was one incentive no one mentioned out loud: the cost per square foot. A traditional office uses around 150 square feet per employee. The modern open office? Less than 100, sometimes 60. Companies saved billions. And this isn't necessarily malice, it's the basic logic of any business. The problem is when space savings are sold as a work philosophy, when cost-cutting becomes culture of collaboration. Here is the question worth asking. Collaboration for whom? In what context? For what kind of work? Because what works for the extrovert who thinks out loud, who is energized by movement, who processes ideas by talking, that can be challenging for someone who needs silence to think. For the introvert, for the neurodivergent person, for the person with anxiety, every conversation nearby can be an interruption. Every loud laugh can break a train of thought. And here is the crucial point. Neither is wrong. The extrovert isn't superficial for liking movement. The introvert isn't fragile for needing silence. They're different ways of processing information. The problem is when a single office format is treated as a universal solution, as if there is one correct way to work that serves everyone. You were sold the idea that this space was made for you to collaborate better, but the truth is more complex. It was made to fit more people while spending less money, and the collaboration story is what justifies the decision. This doesn't mean collaboration doesn't happen, it means it wasn't the primary goal.
The open office, in the way it is implemented by most companies, prioritizes space economy over individual productivity. And it works better for some types of work and some types of people than for others. If you can't function well in this environment, that's not necessarily your weakness. It may be a real misalignment between how your brain processes information and how the space was designed. But, and this is important, this also doesn't mean the open office is intrinsically bad. It means it's a tool with trade-offs, and understanding those trade-offs gives you the power to decide. The exhaustion you feel may not be a lack of discipline. It may be the actual cost of operating in an environment that was not optimized for how you function. Recognizing this isn't an excuse, it's a diagnosis. And diagnosis is the first step toward a solution.
You need to solve a complex problem. Something that requires you to dive in, to hold multiple pieces in your head at once, to think slowly. But before you start, your brain does something else, an automatic scan. Who is sitting behind you? Can anyone see your screen? If you stare blankly for 2 minutes, which happens when you are genuinely thinking, will someone think you're not working? Is your expression appropriate? You don't even realize you are doing this, but you are. It's a normal response to an environment of constant exposure. It's not paranoia. It's your nervous system doing what nervous systems do, monitoring the environment for social threats. There is a frequently cited study by researcher Gloria Mark at the University of California, which shows that it takes, on average, 23 minutes to return to deep focus after an interruption. The exact number varies across studies, but the order of magnitude is consistent. Interruptions are expensive. Now, think about the open office. How many times an hour does someone talk to you, walk past you, laugh loudly, let their phone ring? But here is the part that deserves attention. For some people in the open office, the interruption doesn't even have to happen. The possibility of it already consumes cognitive resources. The brain stays in a low state of alert, always anticipating. It's like trying to sleep in a room where the light could switch on at any moment. You never fully relax. For others, this state of alert is energizing. The presence of others is fuel, not a distraction. This isn't superior willpower, it's a difference in neural architecture. The result for those who don't function well this way is a specific type of exhaustion. You aren't tired from working, you are tired from monitoring the environment, the people, yourself. You spent significant energy on passive vigilance. Less was left over for the work that requires deep focus. At the end of the day, you look at your screen and don't understand. Where did the time go? What did you produce? The answer can be simple. You spent part of the day managing the environment while trying to work.
The big argument in favor of the open office is collaboration. People close by, ideas flowing, spontaneous conversations that turn into innovation. The logic seems solid. If you remove physical barriers, you remove communication barriers. But research tells a more complicated story. In 2018, Harvard researchers Ethan Bernstein and Stephen Turbin conducted a landmark study. They tracked interactions in 2 Fortune 500 companies before and after the transition to the open office. They measured face-to-face conversations using sensors, in addition to emails and messages. The result was surprising. Face-to-face communication dropped by approximately 70%. People didn't talk more, they talked less, and they compensated by sending more emails, more messages. Physical proximity increased, direct connection decreased. Now, one study is not the absolute truth. It's a sample, a specific context. Other research shows mixed results. Some open environments work well for certain types of collaboration, especially creative work in small teams that already have an established relationship. But the Harvard study points to something important. When you don't have structural privacy, you create behavioral privacy. Headphones become a wall. A fixed gaze at the screen becomes a closed door. You develop a body language that says, "Do not interrupt me," because it's the only available protection. The open office doesn't necessarily remove barriers. In some cases, it removes the visible barriers and forces people to build invisible ones. And invisible barriers can be worse, because no one knows exactly when they can approach. The signals are ambiguous, so to avoid the discomfort of interrupting someone, people sometimes simply stop trying. The result can be a paradox. You are surrounded by people, closer physically than you've ever been, and potentially more isolated than if you had a private office. You have 40 people within earshot, and you message the colleague sitting 6 feet away because interrupting feels too invasive. The open office promised community. In some cases, it delivers proximity without connection.
There is a person in your office who seems to thrive. You know them. Maybe you sit next to them. They think out loud. They like movement, people walking by, random conversations in the hallway. The noise doesn't bother them, it energizes them. When they need to solve a problem, they get up and talk to someone. When the environment gets busy, they become more alert, not less. For them, the open office works well. And when they see you with headphones on, hunched over your desk, trying to concentrate, they may not understand. What's the problem? Just focus. They are not being mean. They genuinely don't comprehend why something so easy for them is hard for you. The answer is in neuroscience. There is a concept called sensory filtering, the brain's ability to decide what is relevant and ignore the rest. It is an automatic process outside of conscious control. Some people do this with high efficiency. The office noise becomes background noise, present but easy to dismiss. The brain filters out what doesn't matter and frees up resources for what does. But for other people, and this includes many introverts, neurodivergent individuals, people with increased sensory sensitivity, that filter works differently. Every sound competes for attention with similar weight. Every movement in the peripheral vision registers as information. Every presence in the space is processed. It's not an affectation. It's not a lack of discipline. It's real neurological variation. The open office is not neutral. It works better for one type of nervous system than for another. And since the type that adapts well frequently occupies decision-making positions because corporate environments historically favor extroverted traits, the type that doesn't adapt well can be treated as defective. You need to learn to focus. Everyone else manages, why can't you? That's an excuse. You are not less capable. You are not less professional. You may be playing a game where the rules favor a cognitive style different from yours. And when you have difficulty, you may hear that it's because you didn't try hard enough, when in reality, you are trying harder than others just to reach the same point.
It would be dishonest to present only one side. The open office is not universally bad. There are contexts where it works, and understanding those contexts helps calibrate expectations. First, real-time collaborative work. If your team needs to exchange information constantly, if the work is naturally fragmented into short tasks, if decisions need to be made quickly as a group, physical proximity reduces friction. Newsrooms work this way for decades. Trading floors work this way. Design studios can work this way. Second, small teams with high trust. When you know the people around you well, the social signals become clearer. You know when your colleague is in focus mode. They know when you are available. Tacit coordination replaces the need for walls. Third, work that benefits from environmental energy. Some tasks, brainstorming, customer service, operational work, can gain from the activity around them. Movement keeps you alert. The presence of others creates natural accountability. Fourth, cost. This isn't a productivity argument, but it's real. Open offices are cheaper. For a startup with limited cash flow, the alternative might be no office at all. The trade-off may be worth it. The problem isn't the concept of the open office, it's the universal application of a format that works well in specific contexts as if it were a solution for all contexts. It's treating as a work philosophy what should be a tool among many. Programmers who need 4 hours of uninterrupted focus shouldn't be under the same spatial regime as sales teams who are on calls all day. This is not a criticism of either. It's recognition that different jobs have different needs.
You probably can't tear down the office walls. You can't redesign the space. In most cases, you can't even choose where you sit. But you can do two things. Stop blaming yourself for something that isn't your fault and start managing the environment strategically. Pay attention to these patterns. You come home exhausted, but when you try to remember what you produced, the list is too short to justify the fatigue. You wait for the office to empty, end of the day, lunch hour, to finally be able to work for real. Work from home days bring a disproportionate relief, as if you took a vacation. And you've developed protective rituals you no longer even notice. Headphones always on, even without music. Head down, specific routes to avoid certain areas. If you recognized yourself in two or more of these patterns, it's likely not paranoia. It's your nervous system signaling that the environment costs too much for how you function. Strategy 1. Protect high-value work. Not all work requires deep focus. Emails, meetings, administrative tasks, that can happen in chaos. The problem is when the work that truly matters, complex analysis, difficult code, text that requires deep thought, competes for the same space. Identify what that work is for you, then protect it fiercely. If you have the option for remote work, use it for this. Not to work from home generically, but to do the specific work that requires focus, an important presentation, a strategic report, code that needs clean architecture. You're not running away from the office. You are allocating the right environment for the right work. If you don't have remote work, map out the times. Every office has windows of silence. Too early, too late, lunch hour. These are your focus slots. Block them on your calendar. Treat them as a non-negotiable meeting, because they are. Strategy 3. Negotiate with data. If you want more flexibility, more remote work, a quieter spot, alternative hours, don't ask for it as a favor. Present it as a productivity proposal. Document for 2 weeks how much you produced in each environment, which tasks flowed, which got stuck, where you achieved focus, where you lost it. Then take it to your manager with a specific proposal. On the days I worked from home, I delivered X. On the office days, Y. Proposal, 2 remote days a week focused on type of work. You are not complaining, you are optimizing. It's a language managers understand.
Strategy 4. Accept what you cannot change. Sometimes you have no flexibility. The office is open, you need to be there, and there's no negotiation. In that case, the strategy changes. Minimize the damage and maximize recovery. Use the microspaces. An empty meeting room for 20 minutes, the coffee shop in the building next door, any place that reduces vigilance for a short time. Don't underestimate the effect of small breaks in different environments. And protect your time outside of work. If the office drains more than it should, you need to replenish elsewhere. Don't schedule anything in the first 2 hours after work ends. Give your nervous system time to wind down. The cost of the open office doesn't end at 6 p.m. It extends until you can truly rest.
The open office is neither villain nor hero. It's a tool that works well for some contexts and poorly for others. The problem is when it's treated as a universal solution, when space saving is sold as a philosophy of collaboration, and when those who don't adapt are treated as defective. If you struggle to function in this environment, it may not be your fault. It may be a real misalignment between how your brain processes information and how the space was designed. But recognizing this is not a free pass for victimhood. It is a starting point for action. You don't control the office design, but you control how you allocate your high-value work. You control which barriers you create and how you communicate them. You control the narrative you tell yourself, whether you are the person who can't focus or the person who needs different conditions to do their best work. The second narrative is not an excuse, it's clarity, and clarity is power. You are not broken. You are trying to work in a space that was optimized for other things. And now that you know that, you can start optimizing back. The game doesn't have to be fair for you to play well. It just needs to be visible. Now, it is.